Today, we're going to go over the top 10 backwards compatible gems available on Xbox Series X. But first up, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and share, it really helps the channel out. So ever since the inception of backwards compatibility on Xbox One in 2015, Microsoft has evolved the platform over time, added more features and a lot more games, and now the backcompat library is currently massive. Now, all these upgrades have been for free, and some of these games look like borderline remasters. So whenever I talk about backwards compatibility, a lot of people seem surprised that the games are actually available on modern Xbox platforms, so I felt the need to make this video. So here's the top 10 backwards compatible gems from the Xbox 360 era. I'll show a little bit of each game, talk about the game afterwards, and also talk about what upgrades those games have. Anyway, it's been fun making this video. I hope everyone enjoys it. Coming in at number 10, we have Prince of Persia: The Forgotten Sands. Now this game feels completely different to what you see from Ubisoft these days. It's not open world and it's very linear, but it works in this game's favour. You use your time manipulation powers to get through the environment, and it's just so good. It's a fun game. If you like the climbing puzzles from the early Assassin's Creed games, it very much feels like that. This is a very different type of Ubisoft. The games they were coming out with back then were very different from each other, and if you want something refreshing from Ubisoft, even though it's an older game, I recommend going back to this. And it's just fun from start to finish. The story's interesting and the combat's really good as well, but again, the time manipulation stuff is the heart of this game, which is what makes it so good.
The mask is a powerful device.
Can it really bring the dead back?
You are betrayed. There is no resurrection. Only this living death you see before you.
At number 9, we have Castlevania: Lords of Shadow. This was the first 3D AAA outing for the Castlevania franchise, and they did a fantastic job. And it came out at a weird time between a bunch of other popular games, but this game is so good. It's so epic. And the thing is, even the voice cast is ridiculously good. You have Patrick Stewart as Zobek, Natasha McElhone as Marie Belmont, and then you have Robert Carlyle as Gabriel. And they did a fantastic job. Like, even the voice acting alone in this game just works so well with the setting, its gothic look, and the huge castle and the lands around it is amazing. And I hope we see more games like this in the future, but Castlevania Lords of Shadow is so underrated and you have to play it, and it's backwards compatible. At number 8, we have Lost Planet 3. You play as Jim Payton, a rig pilot that's left Earth on a hazardous trip to the planet EDN-3. It's a prequel to the first Lost Planet, and basically your team is set out to prepare the planet for colonization. Sounds pretty cool, right? However, when they get there, they discover that they aren't alone, and everything goes wrong, and it's just such a cool game. It's super underrated. It kind of feels like Dead Space, but they have mechs in there as well, so you use the mech to go around the environment, even fight enemies, and it's just a cool game. And the thing is, when this game came out, not a lot of people talked about it, and I only really discovered it about 2 years ago, and thanks to backwards compatibility, I enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it. Fun sci-fi game. At number 7, we have The Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings. Now, The Witcher 3 is called a masterpiece every other day, deservingly so, but The Witcher 2 is an amazing game, because this is an RPG that didn't have a huge open world. It's not even open world, it's hub world. Now, if you make certain choices in this game, the second act will actually take place in a completely different area depending on what you choose. It's a very good RPG, and to this day it still looks amazing. CD Projekt Red did an excellent job with the console port on Xbox 360, and it's actually 1X enhanced, so if you have an Xbox One X or Series X, it's crispy 4K. It's aged really well. Now, the story in this game is super dark, and you could probably go off the name of what the game's about, Assassins of Kings, and I highly recommend it. At number 6, we have Fear. This is a supernatural horror thriller FPS, and this was such an underrated early Xbox 360 gem. It really is. And here's the thing, the combat is so good. The developers really took advantage of the hardware at the time, and you actually have slow motion, bullet time gameplay, and it plays amazing to this day. The game is super dark and gritty, and they go places with the story you do not see coming. The game offers a challenge, it is not easy, and it has a lot of jump scares. And I highly recommend it to people that want a challenge. It's also 60 FPS on Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S. It's backwards compatible if you have the disc, or if you got it digital back in the day. And I highly recommend it. Again, super challenging game, but so good.
Must be taken deep into Mordor, and cast back into the fiery chasm from whence it came.
At number 5, we have LEGO Lord of the Rings. And what can I say? This game really surprised me when it came out, because as a fan of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, this game was a lot of fun. It really was. And this was one of the first LEGO games to start using voice acting. They basically used lines from the movies, but it just works. And I'd say up until recently, it was the best LEGO game. And the thing is, you still have all those collectibles, all the mini games. It really is just another LEGO game, but filled with Lord of the Rings humour and sarcasm. It's really good. It also features a 60 FPS boost on Xbox Series X and S. It's backwards compatible if you have the disc, or if you somehow got it digital back in the day. I highly recommend it, especially if you're a Lord of the Rings fan.
It's not a warning, it's a message. Engineers are waiting for someone.
Charlie, where's that trace?
I'm still working on it.
Sam, are you engaging the drone?
No.
Someone's hacking it.
That's why Janine's stalling. It's a trap. Get out of here.
I'm okay.
At number 4, we have Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell Blacklist. Now this game is ridiculously underrated, and it was really overlooked. It launched a few months before the release of Xbox One and PlayStation 4. They had a different voice actor as Sam Fisher, but the game is excellent. The gameplay to this day is still some of the best stealth there is, and the story is super interesting too. It's almost as if they take the stories from 24 and just enhance it to another level. Now this game is actually 4K Xbox One X enhanced, so if you have a One X or a Series X, you can play it in 4K, and it looks really good. Again, super underrated game, and in my opinion, it's actually the best Splinter Cell game. It really is, and I highly recommend it. At number 3, we have Lost Odyssey. This is an exclusive Xbox 360 JRPG by the creator of Final Fantasy, that being Sakaguchi. And a lot of people actually think of this as a proper Final Fantasy game, because it's so good. It really is. In my opinion, it's one of the best JRPGs ever made. You play as Kaim, someone that's lived for centuries, that's forgotten part of his past. And throughout the game you pick up these short stories, these really intricate, well written short stories. A lot can actually pull on the heartstrings. And the thing is, they give you details onto his past, and it's just so good. It's a really well done JRPG, and if you're on Xbox, you have to play this. It's an excellent game. It really is. And its visuals still hold up in my opinion.
Of you to drop in, and just in time.
He's mine, Parasaur.
Remember, you gave your word.
You have 1 minute.
Do they even have manners where he comes from?
At number 2, we have Batman: Arkham Origins. Now the funny thing about this game is that whenever I talk about it, I get one of two replies. Either 1, people are surprised that it's backwards compatible, or 2, people seem surprised that the game even exists. You see, this game launched about a month before the release of Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So this was another title that was heavily overlooked, and a lot of Arkham fans still have not played this game. But it's backwards compatible, and the loading times have been severely reduced on Xbox Series X. It's backwards compatible if you have the disc. Now, the thing about this game is it has some of the best boss battles of the entire series. They are absolutely fantastic. WB Montreal did an amazing job with this game. And also the detective missions that you see in Arkham Knight, they pretty much started in this game. So I highly recommend people playing it. Again, it's an excellent superhero game.
Oh, you've got to be joking. Oh man, let the good times roll.
I hate to see your idea of a bad time.
Open fire!
At number 1, we have Binary Domain. You play as Dan Marshall, sent into Tokyo in 2080 with your squad to figure out why robots have started to infiltrate society. Now, it plays a lot like a Gears of War game, it really does, but with robots as the enemy. But the story is so interesting, it's almost as if they took elements from Ghost in the Shell and the animated movie Vexiel. And honestly, it's one of the best games I played last year. I always wanted to play it, but it was never backwards compatible until November 2021. And it actually has a 60 FPS boost on Xbox Series X and S. And the thing is about this game, we don't see linear third-person shooters much anymore. Unless Microsoft or Sony make them, everything's open world now. The structure of this game is so good. Again, it's like Gears of War. You fight absolutely massive bosses, there's huge set pieces, and it's fun from start to finish. The game doesn't feel like it's bloated, there's a minor upgrade tree for all your items, and there's even like a dialogue system during combat, and if you form stronger bonds with your squad, they'll listen or maybe not listen, and it's just a really cool game. There's very strong elements from Ghost in the Shell in this game, I'll just say that. The story takes you places you don't expect, and I highly recommend it to people. I love this game. It's so good. Honestly, even though it's almost a decade later, I really hope we see a sequel to this. Now those are the top 10 backwards compatible gems on Xbox Series X from the Xbox 360 era. This was a fun video to make, and if you have a different list, please put in the comments down below. And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please hit like, share and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications, you'll be notified from the next video. All Things Xbox podcast returns on Tuesdays. Now, for the past month, I haven't been able to put out topic videos like I normally do every week or so. But all the back-end YouTube stuff is all being sorted and we're back to weekly content. And I have a lot of videos planned to come out between now and the Xbox Summer Showcase, talking about exclusives, features, hardware, and some surprises. And I have some projects lined up for this year I think you really want to pay attention to. Anyway, hope everyone has a good day. I'm out. Peace.